The ship landed on the alien world just as the twin suns began to set. Kang Do-yun stood near the window and watched the purple sky turn to gold. He had dreamed of seeing other planets since he was a boy. Now he was here, standing on a world that was not Earth, breathing air that was not from home. He was a medic, a doctor who studied alien life. He was not important. He was not a diplomat or a soldier. He was just a man who knew how to heal the sick. The delegation had brought him because the rules said they needed a medical officer. Nobody expected him to do anything special. The Valari Empire was old. It had ruled 12 star systems for thousands of years. The Valari people were tall and beautiful. Their skin was silver like moonlight. Strange markings on their bodies glowed softly in the dark. They moved with grace, and they spoke with cold voices. They looked at humans the way humans might look at insects. Humanity was new to space. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 20 years ago. To the Valari, humans were primitive, weak, unimportant. The Empire allowed this visit only because humans were too small to be a threat. It was like a lion allowing a mouse to enter its den. Do-yun did not care about politics. He cared about medicine. He cared about learning how alien bodies worked. He hoped to study Valari biology, to learn their secrets, to bring knowledge back to Earth. The welcome ceremony was held in a great hall made of white stone. The ceiling was so high that Do-hyun could not see the top. Thousands of Valari nobles filled the room. They wore robes of silk and gold. Jewels hung from their necks. They whispered to each other and pointed at the humans with amusement. Commander Yuna Park led the human delegation. She was a strong woman with sharp eyes. She walked with her head held high, refusing to show fear. Do-yun admired her courage. He stayed at the back of the group, trying to be invisible. Queen Alara sat on a throne made of black crystal. She was the most beautiful being Do-yun had ever seen. Her silver skin was flawless. Her eyes were deep purple, like the evening sky. But those eyes were cold, so very cold. She looked at the humans without expression, without warmth, without interest. She spoke words of welcome, but her voice held no welcome. It was a formality, a ritual. She did not care about these primitive visitors. She allowed them to stay for 30 days. Then they would leave, and she would forget they had ever existed. Do-yun stood quietly during the ceremony. His eyes wandered around the great hall. He looked at the architecture, the art, the strange plants that grew in crystal pots. And then he saw her. A small figure stood behind a pillar near the back of the hall. She was trying to hide. She was a child, perhaps 6 years old by human standards. Her skin was not silver like the other Valari. It was pale violet, almost white. Her eyes were large and golden, like two small suns. She coughed. It was a terrible cough, deep and wet. Her small body shook with the force of it. She pressed her hand against her mouth and tried to be quiet. She did not want anyone to notice her, but Do-yun noticed. He watched her carefully. He saw how thin she was. He saw how her hands trembled. He saw the dark circles under her golden eyes. He recognized the signs. This child was very sick. 2 attendants stood near her, but they kept their distance. They did not comfort her. They did not hold her hand. They simply watched with empty faces, as if they were waiting for something inevitable. Do-yun felt his heart grow heavy. After the ceremony, he asked questions. He found a servant who was willing to talk. The servant was old and tired, and she did not care about keeping secrets. The child was Princess Nyla, the queen's only surviving daughter. She was dying. A disease was eating her from the inside. It attacked her blood, made her weak, stole her breath. Valari doctors had tried everything. Nothing worked. They said she would not live to see another year. But that was not the worst part. In Valari culture, sickness was shame. Weakness was failure. Even a princess was not protected from this belief. As Nyla grew weaker, the court grew distant. Nobles who had once smiled at her now looked away. Servants who had once played with her now kept their distance. Even her own mother, the queen, had begun to pull away. Not because she did not love her daughter, but because showing too much attachment to a dying child was considered improper. The queen had to be strong. The queen could not be seen grieving for someone who had already been marked by fate. So little Nyla was slowly being forgotten while she was still alive. Do-yun could not sleep that night. He lay in his bed in the guest quarters and stared at the ceiling. He thought about the little girl with the golden eyes. He thought about her cough. He thought about the way she had hidden behind that pillar, trying to be invisible. He pulled out his medical tablet and began to research. He read everything he could find about Valari biology. He studied the reports about Nyla's condition. He compared her symptoms to human diseases. And then he found it. The disease was similar to a human autoimmune disorder. Very similar. On Earth, this condition had killed millions of people long ago. But humanity had found a treatment. It was not easy. It was not perfect. But it worked. Do-hyun sat up in his bed. His heart was beating fast. He could save her. He believed he could save her. But he was nobody. He was a simple medic from a primitive species. Why would the Valari listen to him? Why would the queen allow a human to touch her daughter? He thought about the risks. If he was wrong, he would die. His whole delegation would die. Commander Park would never forgive him. Earth might lose its chance to join the galactic community. But then he thought about Nyla. He thought about her golden eyes full of fear. He thought about how alone she must feel. He thought about a little girl waiting to die while everyone around her pretended she was already gone. Do-hyun made his decision. In the morning, he requested an audience with the queen. The throne room was empty except for the queen and her advisors. Do-hyun walked across the long floor, his footsteps echoing in the silence. He felt very small. The ceiling above him seemed to reach the heavens. The black crystal throne glittered like a piece of frozen night. Queen Ilara watched him approach. Her purple eyes showed nothing. No curiosity, no warmth, no anger. She was like a statue made of silver and ice. High Counselor Bren stood beside the throne. He was tall, even for a Valari, with sharp features and cruel eyes. He looked at Do-hyun the way one might look at a bug crawling across the floor. "A human wishes to speak with the queen," Bren said. His voice dripped with contempt. How amusing. What could a primitive possibly have to say that would interest Her Majesty? Do-hyun stopped at the proper distance. He bowed deeply the way he had been taught. His Korean manners mixed with the alien customs he had studied. He hoped it was enough. "Your Majesty," he said. His voice was steady, though his heart was racing. "I have come to offer my help." The queen's expression did not change. "Help? With what matter does a human believe he can help the Valari Empire?" Do-hyun took a breath. "Your daughter, Majesty, the Princess Nyla. I believe I can cure her disease." The silence that followed was heavy. Counselor Bren's eyes widened with surprise, then narrowed with suspicion. Other advisors whispered to each other. Someone laughed quietly. The queen raised one hand and everyone fell silent. "You speak of matters that do not concern you," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was something dangerous beneath the surface. "The princess's health is not a topic for foreign visitors." "I mean no disrespect, Majesty," Do-hyun said. "But I am a doctor. I have studied your medical reports. The condition that affects the princess is similar to a disease we have on Earth. We found a cure for it many years ago." Counselor Bren stepped forward. "Lies! Valari medicine is the most advanced in the galaxy. If we cannot cure this disease, how could primitives who still burn dead plants for fuel possibly succeed?" Do-hyun did not look at Bren. He kept his eyes on the queen. "Different species develop different knowledge, Counselor. Humans have faced many diseases that other species never encountered. We learned to fight them because we had no choice. Sometimes being primitive means you must work harder to survive." The queen studied him. For the first time, something flickered in her cold eyes. Not warmth, but interest. "You are either very brave or very foolish, human," she said. "Do you understand what you are asking? You want me to let an alien touch the royal air. You want me to trust the life of my daughter to someone whose species we consider barely civilized?" "Yes, Majesty," Do-hyun said simply. "And if you fail? If your primitive medicine kills her faster?" Do-hyun had expected this question. He had prepared his answer, but saying it out loud was harder than he had imagined. "Then I will accept any punishment you choose, Majesty. My life for my failure." Bren smiled. It was not a kind smile. "One life is not enough payment for a princess. If you fail, human, your entire delegation will die. All 12 of your people. That is the price for touching royal blood with unworthy hands." Do-hyun felt his stomach turn cold. 12 lives. his friends, his crewmates, Commander Park. All of them would die because of his choice. He should refuse. He should apologize and walk away. No one would blame him. No one would expect a single medic to carry such weight on his shoulders. But then he remembered Nyla's golden eyes. He remembered her terrible cough. He remembered how she had hidden behind that pillar, already forgotten by everyone. I accept, he said. The Queen's eyebrow rose slightly. You accept death for 12 of your people? For an alien child you have never spoken to? She is a child, Majesty. That is enough. For a long moment nobody spoke. Even Bren seemed surprised. The Queen looked at Do-hyun as if seeing him for the first time. Very well, she said finally. You have 30 days. If the princess improves, you and your people may leave in peace. If she dies or if her condition worsens, your delegation will be executed. Do you understand? I understand, Majesty. Then go, begin your work, and pray to whatever gods humans worship that you are as skilled as you claim. Do-hyun bowed again and left the throne room. His legs felt weak. His hands were shaking. But he did not let anyone see his fear. Commander Yuna Park was waiting outside. Her face was pale with fury. What did you do? She demanded. Her voice was a harsh whisper. I heard everything. You just bet all our lives on your ability to cure an alien disease. I know, Do-hyun said. You know? That's all you have to say. Do-hyun, these are people with families. Engineer Kim has a daughter waiting for him back on Earth. Lieutenant Han just got married. How dare you gamble with their lives? Do-hyun stopped walking. He turned to face his commander. His eyes were tired but determined. Commander, I saw that little girl. She is alone. She is scared. Her own people have abandoned her because being sick is considered shameful. She is 6 years old and she has accepted that she will die. Park's anger flickered. That is tragic. But it is not our responsibility. Then whose responsibility is it? Do-hyun asked. Should we only help people when it is safe? Should we only show compassion when it costs us nothing? If that is what humanity has become, then maybe we do not deserve to join the stars. Park was silent. I know I have asked too much, Do-hyun continued. I know I had no right to risk everyone's lives. But I could not walk away. I am a doctor. I took an oath to help the sick. That oath did not say only help humans. It did not say only help when it is convenient. Park closed her eyes. She took a deep breath. When she opened her eyes again, the anger had faded. In its place was something else. Something like respect. You are a fool, Kang Do-hyun, she said quietly. Yes, Commander. If you fail, I will personally haunt you in the afterlife. Yes, Commander. Park sighed. What do you need? Medical supplies? Equipment? Tell me what you need, and I will find a way to get it. Do-hyun felt a weight lift from his chest. He was not alone. Everything, he said. I need everything we have, and I need to start immediately. They walked together toward the medical wing where the princess was kept. Behind them, the twin suns continued their slow descent toward the horizon. Ahead of them, a little girl with golden eyes waited for someone to save her. Do-hyun did not know if he could succeed, but he knew he had to try. That was what humans did. They tried, even when the odds were impossible. They hoped, even when hope seemed foolish. They refused to give up, even when giving up was the logical choice. It was perhaps their greatest weakness, and perhaps their greatest strength. The medical chamber was cold and white. Strange machines lined the walls, blinking with lights that Do-hyun did not understand. In the center of the room, a small bed held an even smaller patient. Princess Nyla looked up as Do-hyun entered. Her golden eyes were dull with exhaustion. Dark circles marked the skin beneath them. She was so thin that Do-hyun could see the shape of her bones through her pale violet skin. 4 Velari physicians stood nearby. Their arms were crossed. Their faces showed doubt and disapproval. They had been ordered to allow the human to work, but they did not have to like it. 2 royal guards stood at the door. Their hands rested on their weapons. If Do-hyun made any wrong move, he would die before he could blink. He ignored them all. He walked to Nyla's bed and knelt beside it so that his eyes were level with hers. Hello, he said softly. My name is Do-hyun. I am a doctor from Earth. I am going to try to help you feel better. Nyla stared at him. She had never seen a human before. His skin was strange to her, neither silver nor violet but a warm brown color. His eyes were dark and kind. His voice was different from Valari voices, warmer somehow. "You are the alien," she said. Her voice was weak and raspy. "Yes, I am from very far away. My mother says aliens are primitive." Doyun smiled. "Your mother is probably right, but sometimes primitive people know things that others have forgotten." Neela considered this. Then she coughed, a terrible wet sound that shook her whole body. Doyun waited until the fit passed. He did not look away. He did not show pity or disgust. He simply waited, patient and calm. "Does it hurt?" he asked. Nyla nodded. "Always. I am going to try to make the hurt stop, but first I need to look at you. I need to understand what is happening inside your body. Is that okay?" Nyla looked at the Valari physicians. They had never asked her permission. They had simply done what they wanted, treating her like an object to be studied, rather than a person to be healed. "Okay," she whispered. Doyun spent the first 3 days just observing. He ran tests. He studied her blood. He compared her readings to human medical data. He worked through the nights, sleeping only a few hours at a time. The Valari physicians watched his every move. They muttered among themselves about his strange methods. They predicted his failure. One of them even started a betting pool on how many days until the princess died. Doyun heard them. He said nothing. He just kept working. On the 4th day, he began the treatment. The medication had to be created from scratch. Valari bodies were different from human bodies. He could not simply give Nyla human medicine. He had to modify it, adjust the chemical structure, account for her alien biology. It was like solving a puzzle where half the pieces were missing. Commander Park helped him. She stayed up with him through the long nights, handing him tools, checking his calculations, bringing him food when he forgot to eat. She had accepted his choice, and now she was committed to helping him succeed. The first injection made Nyla cry. Her veins burned with the foreign substance. Doyun held her hand and talked to her until the pain passed. "I am sorry," he said. "I know it hurts, but this medicine is fighting the sickness inside you. It is like a small army of soldiers going to war against the disease." Nyla liked this idea. "Soldiers?" "Yes, tiny soldiers, too small to see. They are very brave. They will fight for you." "Like knights in the old stories?" "Exactly like knights." After that, Nyla asked about the knights every day. Doyun told her stories about them. He described their battles against the disease monsters. He made her laugh with tales of their adventures. He gave each tiny soldier a name and a personality. The Valari physicians thought he was insane. Talking to a patient like she was a person, telling her stories, holding her hand. These were not medical procedures. These were wastes of time. But something strange began to happen. By the 2nd week, Nyla's coughing became less severe. By the 3rd week, she could sit up in bed without help. Her skin began to regain its color. Her golden eyes grew brighter. She was getting better. The physicians could not explain it. The medicine alone should not have worked so quickly. There must be some other factor they were missing. Doyun knew what it was, but he did not tell them. The factor was hope. The factor was connection. The factor was having someone who cared whether you lived or died. Humans had learned this lesson long ago. The body and the mind were connected. A patient who felt loved had a better chance of survival than a patient who felt abandoned. It was not magic. It was not superstition. It was simply how living beings worked. Nyla began to follow Dohyun everywhere. When he left the medical chamber to get supplies, she asked when he would return. When he came back, her face lit up with joy. She saved her best smiles for him. She asked endless questions. What was Earth like? Why was the sky blue there? Did humans have knights? Did they have princesses? Did they have mothers who loved them? Dohyun answered every question honestly. He told her about Earth's oceans and mountains. He told her about rain, which Nyla had never seen. He told her about snow, which made her gasp with wonder. He told her about human families, about mothers and fathers and children. My mother is the queen, Nyla said one day. She is very important. She does not have time to visit me. Dohyun's heart broke a little. I am sure she loves you very much. The doctors say I am dying. They say I am weak. In the Empire, weak things are thrown away. You are not weak, Do-hyun said firmly. You are the strongest little girl I have ever met. You have been fighting this disease every day. That takes more courage than any warrior. Neela looked at him with her golden eyes. Do you really think so? I know so. She was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, Do-hyun, what is a father? The question surprised him. A father? It is a person who helps create a child. Like a mother, but different. No, I know that. But what does a father do? Do-hyun thought carefully. A father protects his child. He teaches her. He tells her stories. He holds her hand when she is scared. He stays with her when everyone else leaves. He loves her no matter what. Neela nodded slowly, as if memorizing his words. Do-hyun, she said, you tell me stories. You hold my hand. You stayed when everyone else left. Do-hyun felt something warm spread through his chest. I suppose I did. Nyla smiled. It was the brightest smile he had ever seen. Then you are like a father, she said. Do-hyun did not know what to say. He was not her father. He was just a doctor from a primitive planet. He had no right to such an important role. But when Nyla reached out and took his hand, he did not pull away. Outside the medical chamber, the Valari court watched with growing unease. The human had done the impossible. He had healed the princess, and somehow he had won her heart. This was not supposed to happen. This was dangerous. High Counselor Bren began to make plans. Whispers spread through the palace like poison. High Counselor Bren moved through the noble families like a shadow. He spoke quietly, carefully, planting seeds of doubt wherever he went. He smiled his cold smile and asked innocent questions that were not innocent at all. Have you seen how the princess follows the human? Is it not strange? They say he uses some kind of alien magic. How else could primitive medicine work when ours failed? The princess calls him by name now. She laughs with him. She holds his hand. Is this proper behavior for royal blood? What if he is manipulating her? What if he plans to use her against the throne? The noble families listened. They nodded. They began to look at Do-hyun differently. Before, he had been a curiosity, an amusing primitive who had somehow succeeded. Now he was something else, a threat, a corrupting influence on the royal heir. Bren was patient. He had waited many years for an opportunity to weaken Queen Alara's position. The queen had ruled with an iron hand for decades. She had crushed all opposition. She had made enemies of powerful families who still remembered their lost influence. Now finally, Bren saw his chance. If he could turn the princess's affection for the human into a scandal, he could embarrass the queen. He could make her seem weak, unable to control her own daughter. He could unite the noble families against her. And then, perhaps, a new ruler might take the throne. A ruler who would reward those who had helped him rise. Bren smiled in the darkness of his chambers. Everything was falling into place. Queen Alara was not blind. She heard the whispers. She saw the looks that followed Do-hyun through the corridors. She knew that Bren was plotting something, but she did nothing. Instead, she watched. She observed her daughter, who was now strong enough to walk through the gardens. She saw how Nyla smiled when the human was near. She heard her daughter laugh for the first time in years. The queen's heart was not made of ice, though she pretended it was. She had pulled away from Nyla not because she did not love her, but because loving her was too painful. Watching her daughter die slowly had been unbearable. It was easier to create distance. It was easier to prepare for the inevitable. But now Nyla was not dying. Now she was laughing and running and asking questions about blue skies and oceans. Now she was alive in a way she had never been before, and it was because of a human. A primitive alien who had risked everything for a child he did not know. The queen did not understand this. Valari did not behave this way. They did not sacrifice for strangers. They did not show compassion to those outside their family. They calculated risks and rewards. They made logical decisions. This human was not logical. He was something else entirely. On the 30th day, Bren made his move. A formal gathering was called. All the noble families were summoned to the Great Hall. The entire court would witness what came next. Bren had arranged everything carefully. He had prepared his arguments. He had gathered his supporters. Do-hyun was brought to the gathering by guards. Commander Park walked beside him, her face tight with worry. She had heard the whispers too. She knew something bad was coming. The great hall was full. Thousands of Velari nobles stood in their finest robes. They watched Do-hyun enter with cold eyes. He was not welcome here. He was not one of them. Queen Illyra sat on her black crystal throne. Her face showed nothing, but her eyes followed every movement in the hall. Bren stepped forward. His voice rang out clear and strong. "Your Majesty, noble families of the Empire, I come before you today with grave concerns. The human called Do-hyun has performed a service for the crown. He has healed the princess. For this, we are grateful." He paused. His eyes swept across the crowd. But gratitude does not mean blindness. We have all seen how the princess behaves with this alien. She follows him like a pet. She speaks to him with affection that should be reserved for family. She has been corrupted by his influence. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Do-hyun stood very still. He knew that speaking out of turn could mean his death. "I propose that the human be sent away immediately," Bren continued. "His work is done. His presence is no longer necessary. Let him return to his primitive world before he causes more damage to the royal family's honor." More murmurs. Some nobles nodded in agreement. Others looked uncertain. And then the doors of the great hall burst open. Princess Nyla ran into the room. Her violet skin was flushed with effort. Her golden eyes were wide with determination. Attendants chased after her, but she was too fast. She ran straight to Do-hyun. Everyone in the hall fell silent. They watched as this small child pushed through the crowd. They watched as she reached the human and grabbed his hand. Neela turned to face the court. Her small body trembled, but her voice was strong. "You want to send him away," she said. "You say he has corrupted me. You say he is a danger." She looked at Bren with eyes that held no fear. "You are wrong." Bren's smile flickered. "Princess, you do not understand. You are just a child. This human has confused you with his alien ways. I understand better than you." Neela's grip on Do-hyun's hand tightened. "When I was dying, where were you? When I cried at night, who came to comfort me? When I thought I would never see another sunrise, who stayed with me?" She pointed at the nobles around her. "Not you, not any of you. You all looked away. You all waited for me to die. You all forgot about me." Her voice cracked, but she did not stop. "He did not forget. He came from the other side of the galaxy, and he did not forget. He held my hand. He told me stories. He made the pain go away. He treated me like a person, not like a broken thing to be thrown away." Tears were running down her face now, but she stood tall. In the old stories, there is a word for someone like that. Someone who protects you. Someone who stays when everyone else leaves. Someone who loves you no matter what. She looked up at Do-hyun. Her golden eyes were shining. "This is my father." The word echoed through the great hall. Father. In Velari culture, this was not just a word. It was a sacred bond. It meant soul protector. It meant one who would die before allowing harm to their child. When a royal named someone as father, it bound them by ancient law. It gave them rights and responsibilities that could not be taken away. No one had ever named an outsider as father. No one had ever named an alien. It was unprecedented. It was unthinkable. And it had just happened in front of the entire court. The silence was absolute. Thousands of Velari stood frozen. Bren's face had gone pale. His careful plans had just crumbled to dust. On her throne, Queen Ilara's expression finally changed. Something moved behind her cold eyes. Something that might have been surprise. Something that might have been respect. Something that might have been hope. The word had been spoken. The bond had been made. And nothing in the empire would ever be the same again. The great hall erupted into chaos. Nobles shouted over each other. Some demanded the princess's words be declared invalid. Others called for the ancient laws to be honored. Arguments broke out between families. Old grudges surfaced. The carefully controlled world of Velari politics was tearing at the seams. Through it all, Neela held on to Do-hyun's hand. She did not let go. She did not back down. High Counselor Bren recovered quickly. He had not survived decades of court intrigue by being easily surprised. He pushed through the crowd and raised his voice above the noise. "Silence! I demand silence!" The hall gradually quieted. All eyes turned to Bren. "This is absurd," he declared. "A child cannot make such a binding declaration. She does not understand what she has said. The word was spoken in ignorance, and therefore it carries no weight." General Torak stepped forward from his position near the throne. He was an old warrior, scarred from countless battles. Unlike Bren, he cared nothing for politics. He cared only for honor and the ancient ways. "The law does not require understanding, counselor," Torak said. His voice was deep and rough. "The law requires only the word. The princess has royal blood. Her word carries the weight of the throne. This is not my opinion. This is fact, written in codes older than your ambition." Bren's eyes narrowed. The law was never meant to protect aliens. It was meant for Valari. To apply it to a primitive human makes a mockery of our traditions. "The law does not mention species," Torak replied calmly. "I have read every word. There is no restriction. The princess has named her sole protector. By ancient custom, that bond is sacred." The nobles murmured among themselves. Torak was right. The law was clear. But the law had never been tested this way before. Bren turned to the queen. "Your Majesty, surely you will not allow this farce to continue. Your daughter has been manipulated by this alien. His influence has confused her mind. Order him executed, and this matter will be resolved." Queen Alara sat motionless on her throne. Her purple eyes moved slowly across the hall, taking in every face, every reaction. When she finally spoke, her voice was cold and clear. "You ask me to declare my daughter's words meaningless, counselor. You ask me to say that the heir to my throne speaks without authority. Think carefully about what you are suggesting." Bren hesitated. He had not considered this angle. If the princess's words could be dismissed so easily, what did that say about royal authority in general? What did it say about the queen's own power? "I meant no disrespect to the royal bloodline," he said quickly. "I only suggest that the circumstances are unusual. Perhaps there is a way to test the human's worthiness. If he fails, the bond could be dissolved without questioning the princess's authority." The queen considered this. "What kind of test?" Bren's cruel smile returned. "The old ways provide an answer. When someone claims a bond they do not deserve, they may be challenged. A trial by combat. If the human truly has the soul of a protector, let him prove it with blood." Gasps echoed through the hall. Trial by combat had not been invoked in generations. It was a relic from a more violent age. General Torak frowned. "The human is not a warrior. This would be execution dressed as justice." "Then he should not have accepted a bond he cannot honor," Bren replied smoothly. "A soul protector must be willing to die for their charge. If he cannot fight for her, he does not deserve the title." Doyun had remained silent throughout the argument. He had listened to every word, understood every implication. Now he stepped forward, gently releasing Neela's hand. "I accept the challenge." The hall went silent again. Commander Park grabbed his arm. "Doyun, no, this is suicide. You cannot fight a Valari warrior. They are twice your size and trained from birth." "I know," he said quietly. "Then why? Why throw your life away?" Doyun looked down at Neela. She was staring up at him with fear in her golden eyes. She had just declared him her father, and now he might die because of it. "Because she believed in me," he said. "She stood in front of this entire court and called me her father. She risked everything. How can I do any less?" He turned back to face Bren. "I accept your challenge, counselor. Name your champion." Bren's smile widened. "I name Varn, champion of the third house. He has never been defeated in combat." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Varn was legendary. He had killed over 50 opponents in ceremonial duels. He was a monster in Valari form. "The duel will take place tomorrow at dawn," the queen declared. "The terms are submission or death. May the ancient laws judge who is worthy." The gathering dispersed. Nobles hurried away to gossip and place bets. Most assumed the human would die within seconds. A few wondered if he might last a full minute. Commander Park walked with Do Yun back to the human quarters. Her face was grim. "You have basic military training," she said. "You know how to shoot a gun and throw a punch. That is all. Varn has been fighting since before you were born." "I know." "You will die." "Maybe." Park stopped walking. She grabbed Do-hyun's shoulders and forced him to face her. "Why are you doing this? Really, tell me the truth." Do-hyun was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "When I was a child, my father left. Just walked out one day and never came back. I grew up wondering what I did wrong. I grew up thinking I was not worth staying for." He looked back toward the palace where Nyla was surely crying in her room. "That little girl has been abandoned by everyone. Her own people treated her like she was already dead. And then she stood up in front of her entire world and called me father. She chose me. She believed I was worth something." His eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. "I cannot walk away from that. I cannot let her think that the person she chose will abandon her too. Even if I lose, even if I die, she needs to know that someone was willing to fight for her." Park stared at him for a long time. Then she pulled him into a tight hug. "You stupid, wonderful fool," she whispered. "I know," he said. That night, Do-hyun did not sleep. He sat in his quarters and thought about his father. He thought about the empty space that man had left behind. He thought about all the years he had spent wondering why he was not enough, and he made a promise to himself. Whatever happened tomorrow, Nela would never wonder. She would never doubt. She would know for the rest of her life that someone had loved her enough to fight impossible odds. That was what a father did. That was the only thing that mattered. When the twin suns rose over the palace, Do-hyun was ready. The arena was older than the palace itself. It was a circle of white stone, worn smooth by centuries of combat. Stone seats rose around it in tiers, filled with thousands of Vilari who had come to watch the human die. Twin suns burned in the purple sky. The heat was intense. Do-hyun stood at one end of the arena, stripped to simple training clothes. He looked small and fragile beneath the alien sky. At the other end stood Varn. The champion was enormous. He was nearly 7 feet tall, with silver skin stretched over muscles that looked carved from metal. Bioluminescent markings covered his body, pulsing with light. His eyes were flat and empty, the eyes of someone who had killed so many times that death no longer meant anything. He carried a ceremonial blade, curved and beautiful and deadly. Do-hyun carried nothing. He had refused all weapons. He did not know how to use Valari blades, and bringing a human weapon would have been seen as an insult. He would fight with his hands or not at all. The crowd laughed when they saw this. The betting pools closed. No one would waste money on such obvious odds. In the royal viewing box, Queen Alara sat with perfect stillness. Beside her, Princess Neela pressed against the railing. Her golden eyes were fixed on Do-hyun. Her small hands were clenched into fists. "He will be fine," she whispered to herself. "He will be fine," he promised. Nearby, High Counselor Bren smiled with satisfaction. In a few minutes, the human would be dead. The embarrassing bond would be broken, and the foolish princess would learn a valuable lesson about trusting primitives. General Torak stood apart from the others. His old warrior's eyes studied Do-hyun with curiosity. The human showed no fear. His body was relaxed, his breathing steady. He looked like a man who had accepted his fate, or like a man who knew something others did not. The ceremonial horn sounded. The duel had begun. Varn did not rush. He walked forward slowly, savoring the moment. He had killed warriors and nobles and champions. He had never killed an alien before. This would be an amusing addition to his record. "Kneel," Varn said. His voice was like grinding stone. "Kneel, and I will make your death quick." Do-hyun did not kneel. He did not speak. He simply waited. Varn's empty eyes flickered with annoyance. He raised his blade and swung. The blade cut through empty air. Do-hyun had moved, stepping to the side at the last possible moment. He had been watching Varn's shoulders, his hips, the small movements that telegraph an attack. Human combat was not elegant. It was not ceremonial. It was survival, pure and desperate, learned in street fights and bar brawls and military training camps. Varn swung again. Again Do-hyun dodged, sliding just beyond the blade's reach. The crowd murmured. The human had not died yet. This was unexpected. Varn attacked faster now, his blade whistling through the air. Do-yun kept moving, kept dodging, refusing to stand still and accept his death. He was not trying to win. He was trying to survive, second by second, breath by breath. But he could not dodge forever. The blade caught his arm, cutting deep. Blood sprayed across the white stone. Do-yun stumbled, and Varn was on him instantly, driving a massive fist into his stomach. Do-yun flew backward and crashed to the ground. Pain exploded through his body. He could not breathe. The world spun around him. Varn stood over him, blade raised for the killing blow. "Pathetic," the champion said. "This is the sole protector of a princess? A bleeding worm crawling in the dirt?" He brought the blade down. Do-hyun rolled. The blade struck stone, sending sparks flying. Before Varn could recover, Do-hyun kicked out, sweeping the champion's legs. Varn did not fall. His balance was too good. But he stumbled, just for a moment, and that moment was enough. Do-hyun lunged upward and drove his elbow into Varn's throat. The champion staggered back, choking. His grip on the blade loosened. Do-hyun grabbed his wrist and twisted, using leverage instead of strength. The blade clattered to the ground. The crowd went silent. Varn roared with rage and swung his massive fist. It connected with Do-hyun's face, snapping his head to the side. Blood poured from his nose, his vision blurred. But he did not fall. He could not fall. Nyla was watching. She was counting on him. He had made a promise. Do-hyun attacked, not with skill, not with grace, but with everything he had. He punched and kicked and grabbed and bit. He targeted joints and soft spots, the vulnerable places that even the strongest warrior could not protect. Varn was bigger. Varn was stronger. Varn was faster. But Varn had never fought a human before. Humans did not fight fair. Humans did not follow rules. When humans were pushed to the edge of death, they found something deep inside themselves, a refusal to quit, a stubborn, stupid, beautiful refusal to accept defeat. Every time Do-hyun was knocked down, he got back up. Every time he was hit, he kept fighting. His blood stained the white stone. His body screamed with pain. But he would not stop. The crowd had fallen completely silent. They had never seen anything like this. Velari warriors fought with honor and technique. They accepted defeat when they were outmatched. This human did not know how to accept defeat. Minutes passed. Both fighters were covered in blood. Varn's movements had slowed. His breath came in ragged gasps. He had expected a quick kill, not a war of endurance. Do-hyun could barely see. One eye was swollen shut. Several ribs were broken. His left arm hung useless at his side, but he was still standing. Varn charged one final time. It was sloppy, desperate, the attack of a warrior who had lost his confidence. Do-hyun saw it coming. He did not dodge this time. Instead, he stepped into the attack. He caught Varn's arm and used the champion's own momentum against him. A simple throw, the kind taught to human soldiers in their first week of training. Nothing fancy, nothing elegant. Varn crashed to the ground. Before anyone could react, Do-hyun was on top of him. He locked Varn's arm behind his back and pressed his knee into the champion's spine. The hold was unbreakable. If Varn tried to move, his arm would snap. "Yield!" Do-hyun gasped. Blood dripped from his face onto Varn's silver skin. Varn struggled. The arm bent further. Bone began to crack. "Yield!" Do-hyun shouted. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly the tension left Varn's body. "I yield!" the champion whispered. The crowd sat in stunned silence. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. And then from the royal viewing box, a small voice cried out, "Father!" Nyla was on her feet, tears streaming down her face, her golden eyes shining with joy and pride and love. "Father! Father! Father!" She said it over and over, as if the word itself was a victory. As if by speaking it, she was declaring something that the entire universe needed to hear. General Torak was the first to react. The old warrior began to clap, slowly at first, then faster. Others joined him. Soon the entire arena was filled with applause. Even Queen Ilara was clapping. Her cold mask had cracked, and beneath it, Do-hyun could see something that looked almost like a smile. He had won. Against all odds, against all logic, against everything the Velari believed about humans, he had won. Do-hyun collapsed onto the stone, too exhausted to move. But he was smiling. He had kept his promise. The days after the duel passed in a blur of pain and recovery. Do-hyun spent most of his time in the medical chamber, where he had first met Neela. Now the roles were reversed. She sat beside his bed and told him stories while the doctors worked to heal his broken body. The Valari physicians treated him with something new in their eyes. It was not quite respect, but it was no longer contempt. They had watched him fight. They had seen him refuse to die. Whatever else he was no longer just a primitive in their minds. Neela rarely left his side. She brought him food he could not eat and water he barely had strength to drink. She held his hand through the worst of the pain, just as he had held hers weeks before. "You were very brave," she said one morning. "Everyone is talking about it. They say no one has ever fought like that before." Do-hyun tried to smile, though it hurt his swollen face. "I was very scared." "Really?" Neela's golden eyes widened. "But you did not look scared. You looked angry. Sometimes being scared makes you angry. You get angry at the thing that is trying to hurt you. You get angry at the idea of giving up." He paused. "And sometimes you get angry because someone you love is counting on you, and you refuse to let them down." Neela was quiet for a moment. Then she climbed onto the bed, careful not to touch his injuries, and curled up beside him. "I was scared too," she whispered. "When he hit you, I thought you would die. I thought I had killed you by calling you father." "Hey!" Do-hyun turned his head to look at her. "You did not do anything wrong. You were brave too, maybe the bravest person in that whole room." "Me? I just said a word." "Words have power. You stood in front of your entire world and told them what you believed. That takes more courage than punching someone." Nyla considered this. Then she nodded seriously. "We are both brave then." "Yes, we are both brave." While Do-hyun recovered, the political landscape of the Valari Empire shifted beneath everyone's feet. High Counselor Bren's influence collapsed almost overnight. He had orchestrated the challenge, and his champion had lost to a primitive human. The noble families who had supported him quickly distanced themselves. Within a week, he had been stripped of his position and sent to a distant outpost at the edge of the empire. General Torak took over many of his duties. The old warrior had been impressed by Do-hyun's determination. He began speaking openly about the value of human spirit, the strange fire that burned inside these small, fragile creatures. Queen Ilara summoned Do-hyun to a private audience when he was well enough to walk. He limped into her chambers, still wrapped in bandages, still aching with every step. She sat not on a throne this time, but in a simple chair by a window. The twin suns painted the room in shades of gold and rose. Without her formal robes and cold mask, she looked almost ordinary, almost approachable. "Sit," she said, gesturing to a chair across from her. Do-hyun sat gratefully. Standing was still difficult. For a long moment, the queen said nothing. She simply studied him with her deep purple eyes. He let her look. He had nothing to hide. "I do not understand you," she finally said. "I have ruled this empire for 60 years. I have dealt with diplomats and warriors and spies from 100 different species. I have never met anyone like you." "I am nothing special, Majesty. I am just a doctor." "No." She shook her head slowly. "You are not just anything. A doctor does not risk his life for a stranger. A doctor does not fight a champion barehanded. A doctor does not change the course of an empire." She leaned forward slightly. "You saved my daughter when my own people would have let her die. You fought for her when you had nothing to gain. You nearly died for a child who was not your blood, not your species, not your responsibility." Her voice softened, just a little. "Why?" Do-hyun thought about the question. He had been asked it so many times now. By Commander Park, by Nyla, by himself in the quiet hours of the night. "Because that is what we do," he said simply. "Humans, I mean, we protect children. All children. It does not matter whose children they are, or what they look like, or where they come from. When we see a child suffering, something inside us demands that we act." He paused, searching for the right words. "My species has not always been kind. We have done terrible things to each other. We have wars and hatred and cruelty, just like everyone else. But there is something in us that refuses to accept the suffering of the innocent. We see a child in pain, and we cannot look away. We have to help. It is not logical. It is not strategic. It is just who we are. The queen was silent for a long time. My people are old, she said at last. We have built an empire that spans the stars. We have technology your species cannot imagine. We live for centuries. We have forgotten more knowledge than your world has ever possessed. She looked out the window at the golden sky. But somewhere along the way, we forgot something important. We forgot how to care for each other simply because we are alive. We forgot how to love without calculation. We forgot how to be human. She turned back to him and smiled. It was a strange expression on her cold face, but it was genuine. That is a joke. An old queen making jokes. Perhaps I am learning something from you primitives after all. Do-Yun returned the smile, though it hurt his face. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. The queen announced a new era of relations between the Valari Empire and humanity. Trade agreements were signed, cultural exchanges were arranged, human doctors were invited to study at Valari medical facilities. Valari scholars expressed interest in human history and art. Do-Yun was offered a position as permanent ambassador to the Valari court. He accepted. It meant leaving Earth, leaving everything he knew, living among aliens for the rest of his life. But it also meant staying with Neela. The human delegation prepared to return home, but Do-Hyun would not be joining them. Commander Park hugged him tightly before she boarded the ship. You changed history, she said. You know that, right? Everything that happens between our species from now on, it started with you. It started with a little girl who needed help. Do-Hyun corrected. I just happened to be there. Park shook her head. No, plenty of people were there. You were the only one who did something about it. She stepped back and saluted him. Then she smiled. Take care of your daughter, Ambassador. Do-Yun watched the ship rise into the purple sky and disappear among the stars. He felt a small hand slip into his. Neela stood beside him, her golden eyes reflecting the departing vessel. Will you miss your home? She asked. Do-Yun looked down at her. This small alien child with violet skin and a heart bigger than most adults he had known. This princess who had chosen him when everyone else looked away. I am home, he said. That evening, as the twin suns set over the palace, Do-Yun sat with Neela in the garden. She had brought a book of Valari fairy tales, and she wanted him to read to her. No, she said, pushing the book away. Tell me an Earth story instead. So Do-Yun told her about Earth. He told her about blue skies and green forests and oceans so vast you could not see the other side. He told her about rain and snow and thunderstorms. He told her about mountains that touched the clouds and rivers that sang as they flowed. He told her about humans, about their stubbornness and their hope, about how they kept fighting even when they could not win, about how they loved their children fiercely, desperately, with everything they had. Neela listened with wonder in her eyes. When he finished, she leaned against him and sighed with contentment. Father, she said softly, will you tell me another story tomorrow? Do-Yun put his arm around her and looked up at the unfamiliar stars. Every day, he promised, for the rest of my life. And he did. In the years that followed, the story of the human doctor and the alien princess spread across the galaxy. It became a legend, a fairy tale, a reminder that compassion could change the universe. But for Do-Hyun and Neela, it was never a legend. It was simply their life. A father and daughter from different worlds, bound by a word spoken in courage and proven in blood. That was the human way. That was what made them special. Not their technology or their power or their empire. Just their stubborn, beautiful, impossible love.